Welcome to Chattanooga Week on the Rocky Top Roundtable. I am Austin Price. They are Eric Kane, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs. And guys, it's been a long off season. Football's finally here, coming up 12:45 on Saturday. What is it you've liked, before we talk about the matchup, what is it you've liked about this team's kind of work ethic in fall camp?
Well, I mean, according to the coaches, they're all going to the Hall of Fame. But, I mean, I think this team has – I do think this team has come to work. I think they've got a core group of veterans, Rob, who know what it takes and what to do, and I think that helps some of these young guys come along. I think what Cooper Maines means to Nico is really important on offense. And then defensively, those veteran defensive linemen, I think, mean a lot to the rest of the defense.
I mean, I think you have a really nice blend of veterans and youth and talented youth, which is what you would hope, 4 years into the program. You mentioned Nico and Cooper Mays. I would mention the same thing about Brew McCoy as a resource, or Keenan Pili and Arion Carter. I think there's a lot of that going on the roster. And just, deep, we've talked all season. What I like the most probably is deep. It's not one or two guys, you've got some options.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. It's not something that I've liked, that I've seen from them in fall camp, but I mean, it's just what you've been hearing. Josh Hobble going back to media days, every media appearance he's done, these assistant coaches, the quality depth where you are in most position rooms. It's not all the way there where they want it to be, don't get me wrong, but it's just miles and miles better than where it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and even last year. So I'm excited to see the depth and, hopefully in certain spots, some of the rotations this year as the season goes along.
So we've got Chattanooga coming up 12:45 on Saturday. It's a kind of ease into the pool type game for a lot of players. No greater one than Nico Iamaleava, who is in his second start, but first home start at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to remember, he's only played 4 quarters of real football. I mean, he played some mop-up stuff, but I mean, realistically, It was 4 quarters of. So he is a young football player. Now, all the hype suggests that he's a cagey veteran with a ton of experience, which gets back to a little bit of the question, like, how long are you going to let him play? Because he can't get too many reps, because he needs every rep he can get, but you're not going to play him, recklessly either. But, I mean, he's got to take care of the ball. He's got to manage the game, and he's got to continue to grow.
That would be my thing more than anything, is more than stats, more than completion percentage, managing the game, being in control. Don't throw one where you're like, oh my goodness, did he not see that guy? And I'll be surprised if we don't see that, Brett. But I totally get your point. You want to, in the case of emergency, you want somebody else to play, but also every rep he gets is a benefit.
Eric, when you look at Nico, his best friend obviously is the running game, but it's also the offensive line, an offensive line that hasn't played that much together in fall camp. How big is Brent brings up the point of like getting him real work, but getting the offensive line real work on Saturday for a substantial amount of series.
Yeah, I think it's huge, especially a week before you go to a neutral site and take on a top 25 team in NC State. Lance Hurd missed the first scrimmage. He scrimmaged the second one. John Campbell's been out a little bit. Andre Kierke's been limited some. I think it's huge to get those guys together, working as a unit, 5 across, get a little bit in shape, because the Virginia game a season ago, a lot of those guys were sucking wind, and a lot of that just smacks you in the face to begin the season anyway. But I think it's huge to get this group together. And going back to what you guys said earlier, veteran offensive line, even though Lance Hurd's kind of a new starter, it's a veteran offensive line. It's going to be a quarterback's best friend. And again, Cooper leading that bunch as a 5th year. I think this is going to be a group that, if they stay healthy, they can be really good.
A year ago, Rob, Tennessee went right down the field and they scored, right? And it looked like, oh, here comes the freight train. And then they kind of went into a lull the rest of the half, missed some deep shots. Ramel Keaton dropped that one. How does Tennessee stay crisp, if they start fast on Saturday?
I mean, I don't want to oversimplify things, and I do not want to pile on Joe Milton. I'm just going to be really surprised if Tennessee's offense is not more crisp, not more in sync because of the quarterback play. I just think Nico is going to process things quicker. I think he's going to be more decisive with the football. I don't think that the staff is going to be shy about working the middle of the field with him. I just think he's going to be on time and smoother. Now, maybe that didn't happen in week 1. It is, kind of pseudo first start. But, long answer to an easy question. I think Nico.
And again, going off what you just said, Rob, and not necessarily something you might see on Saturday, but you might. I mean, Nico's ability to extend plays, to when the pocket breaks down, get out of the pocket, eyes downfield, see your man, hit your man. We all saw him run in the bowl game, a couple of design run, quarterback runs. That third one was just him making a play, right? But I think his ability just to, when something doesn't go his way or the offensive ways, the play's not over. Go make a play. And off-platform throws. That's something that this offense really lacked at points in times a season ago. So I think overall, not just Saturday, that's something that this offense is going to get back. That's they used a lot in 2022.
Defensively, what could Chattanooga do that would help Tennessee try to figure out where they are before they play NC State? I mean, what I mean? Like, what is it? Is it they throw the ball a lot more just to test the secondary? What is it that Chattanooga could potentially do to help Tennessee kind of figure out a barometer of where they are in certain areas?
Oh, I think middle of the football field underneath. I think slants, screens, some things like that. I think we all believe this is going to be a super aggressive, super fast defense. A defense that's going to play very much upfield in the defensive line. So does Chattanooga try to do some things to slow it down that way? Do they put that secondary in some one-on-one situations and try to work the middle of the field, which has been a bit of a bugaboo for Tennessee, where's the linebacker coverage there? So I think it's some underneath stuff in the passing game and then some pursuit stuff where you try to misdirection it and force Tennessee to stay at home defensively to slow down. If I'm the Tennessee coaches, I want some of that stuff to make sure we're just not pinning our ears back and just cutting it loose every play. You're playing some responsibility as well.
I'm fascinated to kind of see how the corners play. I mean, you've got this. You brought it up a few times. When you've got this uber talented group that can get after the quarterback, does it allow the corners to play a little bit more aggressive? Do they play more aggressive, or do you still see the same old, same old?
Well, that's the $1 million question. Are they going to creep up or are they going to back up?
And we're probably not going to get the answer this week, but maybe you can get a clue.
Well, you hope they're creeping up this week.
This week, yeah. but is that going to be what they do
Sure.
when it matters?
Is that going to be the norm?
It's all tied in. I mean, it's football 101. Your defensive line, how effective they are getting after the passer, don't have to send a blitzer from the second level or the third level. It allows your secondary to do some different things, scoot up, play tight man coverage, back up, play some zone when you want to. Again, I'm intrigued, and we talked to Tim Banks and Willie Martinez a little bit about this last week, and they said it kind of depends on the personnel they have, who they're playing, but they do feel like they can be versatile back there. We'll see, but I do think that defensive line is going to be the defense's greatest asset.
And I think you have to be careful not to be too complicated in the back end.
Yeah.
Play to your strengths. You're more athletic. You can run. You don't have a ton of experience in areas. Don't get out of what you do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it doesn't grow throughout the year, but don't put so much on them that they're tying up their feet, as coaches like to say, and you slow them down. You got to turn them loose and let them play. 4 years ago, it was DeAndre Johnson. Everybody was talking about after the first game of the season during that COVID season over at South Carolina. Last year, people were talking about Dylan Sampson a little bit just because he scored all those touchdowns against Virginia. Who's the one person that people are going to be talking about after this first game around the water cooler on Monday? Well, I think I said in a podcast, Joshua Joseph, but I'm going to take an offensive guy in this one, and I'm going to say Chris Brazel. That's my guy. I've liked him all camp. I think he and Nico are going to have good chemistry.
I would have said Josh Joseph, but Hubbard's owned him like for weeks, so you can't go there. I don't know if this is going to be the case all year long, but in week one, I think Deshaun Bishop, because he's not done anything. He's a local guy. I think he's going to put up big numbers.
Yep, I think that's a real good one for week one. I'll go defense here. I'll stay a new addition at cornerback, Jamal McCoy. I think he's going to make a couple of pass breakups, maybe go make a play on the ball. He's going to be a good one for Tennessee on Saturday and this year.
And I'm going to go Ethan Davis. I think that, I'm going to go ahead and call my shot. He catches the first touchdown of the year. That's what I'm rolling
They get in the red zone, he should be a weapon. And this team has to be better in the red zone. When you talk about checklists for games and what you're trying to do, that's one area on offense you want to be really efficient.
Yeah, again, I know Coach Apple said that they've kind of tightened some of those things up, red zone in fall camp, tightened up the penalties in fall camp, especially the back part of fall camp. But you don't really know until you're out there playing the game. I tightened up my driver on the driving range, and then on the first hole hit it dead right. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's until you get out there and the nerves and the butterflies are there on a Saturday afternoon, who knows how some of these kids react, because at the end of the day, they are a veteran group in a lot of ways, but in certain spots, they're still very, very young.
Yeah, in certain spots, they're really young, and guys are going to get their first taste of things, including place kickers. That's another checklist deal. I know probably not going to be a pressure-packed kick, but, man, I might be a little conservative if I'm at the 35 and run a little draw play on 3rd and 8.
And see how he responds.
With the idea of going out there and kicking a 40-yard field goal, because I think you got to check that box before you get ready to go to Charlotte and Norman, Oklahoma, and those type places.
Agreed. I mean, that place kicker spot is going to be interesting early in the year because you do have that neutral site and 2 road games. And kickers are kind of like golfers. I mean, it's easy to, either be riding high or get really down on yourself, when you're in those spots, because it's a lonely spot out there as a punter and a kicker.
No doubt.
For Eric Kane, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs. I'm Austin Price for the Rocky Top Roundtable. We'll talk to you next week, everybody.